On the morning of April 19, 1995, Oklahoma Highway Patrol Trooper Charlie Hanger patrols the quiet stretch of Interstate 35, watching a yellow 1977 Mercury Marcus cruise northward without a rear license plate. The trooper activates his lights, unaware that a catastrophic event has shattered downtown Oklahoma City just 80 minutes prior. The driver, a 26-year-old man named Timothy McVeigh, pulls onto the gravel shoulder with practiced calm and hands over a Michigan driver license. As Trooper Hanger leans in to inspect the documents, the morning sunlight catches a distinct heavy bulge beneath the driver's light windbreaker. Drawing his service weapon, the trooper orders the man out of the vehicle and discovers a fully loaded Glock 21 .45 caliber pistol concealed against his body. Trooper Hanger places the stoic driver in handcuffs for carrying a concealed weapon and operating an unregistered vehicle, ending the most extensive manhunt in American history before the search even officially begins. Downtown Oklahoma City in the early spring of 1995 serves as a thriving epicenter of civic life and government commerce. Located on Northwest 5th Street, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building stands 9 stories tall, presenting a vast facade of reinforced concrete and wide glass windows that reflect the morning sun. Federal employees fill the surrounding parking lots and concrete sidewalks, carrying briefcases and thermoses of coffee as they prepare for a standard midweek workday. The structure houses multiple crucial agencies, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Social Security Administration, and local military recruiting offices. Inside the wide fluorescent-lit corridors, workers exchange morning greetings and organize stacks of paperwork for the citizens sitting in the waiting rooms. Elevators chime as they transport staff to their respective floors, creating a steady rhythm of routine bureaucratic activity. Outside the building, the hum of city traffic and the distant sound of delivery trucks provide a familiar, comforting backdrop to the urban landscape. The people inside view the massive concrete walls not just as a workplace, but as a secure, enduring fortress of the American government. Nothing in the surrounding environment hints at the impending devastation, leaving the civil servants focused on their upcoming meetings and daily tasks. On the second floor of the Murrah Building, the America's Kids Daycare Center buzzes with the energetic voices of toddlers and infants. Working parents guide their young children through the secure glass doors, hanging tiny coats on designated plastic hooks and waving goodbye before heading to their offices upstairs. The daycare features brightly colored rugs, wooden building blocks, and rows of small cots arranged for afternoon naps. Caregivers organize morning reading sessions, sitting in circles with the children while the city wakes up outside the large second-story windows. Just 1 floor below, on the ground level, senior citizens and young families wait in line at the Social Security office to process essential forms. These citizens represent a perfect cross-section of working-class society, immersed in the mundane necessities of everyday life. Grandparents hold the hands of their grandchildren, while clerks behind thick counters type information into glowing computer monitors. The spatial arrangement of the building places the most vulnerable individuals, the children and the elderly closest to the street level, directly facing the designated public parking zones. This specific architectural layout, designed for public convenience, sets the stage for a catastrophic loss of innocent life. Far beyond the city limits, a different reality unfolds in the shadowed corners of transient motels and rural gun shows. Timothy McVeigh, a former Army gunner, spends the years following his military discharge wandering across state lines, consumed by a deepening hatred for the federal government. He views the federal siege in Waco, Texas, as an unforgivable transgression, using the tragedy as a psychological catalyst to justify a devastating act of retaliation. Operating under various aliases, he traverses the American Midwest in a beat-up vehicle, attending survivalist expos and making discreet purchases of racing fuel, fertilizer, and blasting caps. He presents himself as an unassuming, clean-cut veteran, masking his extreme intentions behind a polite, disciplined demeanor that deflects any suspicion from local authorities. Law enforcement agencies miss crucial warning signs during this period, failing to connect his transient lifestyle and erratic purchases due to fragmented communication between state jurisdictions. He tests small explosive devices in the remote desert, refining his methods while visualizing the ultimate destruction of a federal target. He studies the architectural layout of the Murrah building, identifying the vast glass exterior and the unprotected street parking as severe structural vulnerabilities. His meticulous planning relies on the open, trusting nature of a society that never anticipates an attack from one of its own citizens. As the morning of April 19th progresses, the final elements of a calculated assault converge on the heart of downtown Oklahoma City. A large yellow Ryder rental box truck rolls heavily through the waking streets, carrying nearly 5,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate and liquid nitromethane concealed within its cargo bay. The driver navigates the heavy vehicle down Northwest 5th Street, scanning the area before identifying a vacant drop-off zone located directly in front of the Murrah building. At exactly 8:57 in the morning, the heavy truck pulls to a stop against the curb, sitting mere feet from the plate glass windows of the ground floor offices. The perpetrator initiates a timed ignition sequence inside the cab, secures the vehicle doors, and calmly walks away from the target zone, blending into the flow of pedestrian traffic. Inside the federal building, workers continue typing on their keyboards, pouring fresh coffee, and answering telephone calls, oblivious to the massive payload parked outside. Down on the second floor, the children in the daycare gather around a table for their morning activities, their innocent voices echoing off the walls. The physical distance between the explosive material and the occupied desks measures less than 15 feet in some areas, offering zero physical protection from the impending shockwave. The digital clock on the dashboard of the abandoned truck ticks down the final seconds of normalcy for hundreds of families. At exactly 9:02 in the morning, the dormant payload inside the Ryder truck ignites, unleashing a cataclysmic shockwave that rips through the center of the city. The immense force of the blast instantly shears away the entire north face of the 9-story federal building, vaporizing the reinforced concrete pillars and shattering thousands of windows across a multi-block radius. Office floors collapse downward in a cascading failure, panking massive concrete slabs on top of the lower levels where the daycare and the Social Security offices are situated. The deafening roar of the explosion triggers car alarms miles away, sending a towering plume of black smoke and pulverized debris into the clear morning sky. 168 individuals, including 19 young children, meet a sudden permanent end within the crushing weight of the ruined structure. Desks, filing cabinets, and personal photographs scatter across the devastated street, mixing with the twisted steel and fragmented glass. The blast radius damages more than 300 surrounding buildings, transforming a vibrant urban center into an unrecognizable landscape of ash and ruin. A heavy, choking dust settles over the impact zone, plunging the surviving occupants into total darkness and disorienting silence. The sheer scale of the devastation leaves the remaining citizens struggling to comprehend the reality of the vanished building before them. Within minutes of the shockwave, ordinary citizens and unennigered office workers sprint toward the unstable mountain of rubble, tearing at chunks of concrete with their bare hands in a desperate search for survivors. Sirens pierce the thick air as local fire departments, police units, and medical personnel converge on the disaster site, establishing makeshift triage centers on the ash-covered sidewalks. Emergency responders crawl through treacherous, shifting voids in the collapsed structure, listening for the faint sounds of trapped victims calling out from the darkness. Simultaneously, federal authorities in Washington activate emergency protocols, mobilizing the Federal Bureau of Investigation to launch the most extensive domestic response in national history. The sheer magnitude of the destruction leads counterterrorism experts to initially suspect a coordinated attack orchestrated by an international syndicate. Tactical agents lock down the perimeter, securing the area to preserve any fragmented clues hidden within the vast field of debris. Investigators begin the monumental task of sweeping the ruined streets, searching for the singular piece of physical evidence that could explain the mechanism of the blast. As the rescue effort continues into the evening, the federal government issues a sweeping mandate to locate the perpetrators. Unaware that the architect of the tragedy is sitting quietly in a small county jail cell for a minor traffic violation, the nation watches the television broadcasts in absolute shock, waiting for answers while a complex, agonizing recovery operation stretches into the night. The blast crater measures 30 feet wide and 8 feet deep, surrounded by acres of shattered concrete and twisted steel. Federal Bureau of Investigation evidence recovery teams grid the disaster zone, sifting through the hazardous rubble under the harsh glare of portable floodlights. Among the jagged debris scattered 2 blocks away near the Regency Tower apartments, an astute investigator spots a heavy, mangled piece of metal. The object is a twisted rear axle housing, blown completely clear of the epicenter by the sheer force of the ammonia nitrate payload. A close inspection of the blackened steel reveals a faint string of stamped letters and numbers. This partial vehicle identification number provides the first tangible thread in the sprawling labyrinth of the investigation. Forensic technicians carefully extract the axle from the wreckage and transmit the sequence to the National Crime Information Center. The database query routes the number to a Ford manufacturing plant, which identifies the part as belonging to a 1993 F-Series chassis. The manufacturer records indicate this specific chassis was sold to the Ryder Truck Rental Corporation, narrowing the focus of the nationwide search. Detectives trace the vehicle history to a specific fleet inventory located at Elliott's Body Shop in Junction City, Kansas, roughly 270 miles north of the devastated federal building. Elliott's Body Shop sits along a quiet commercial strip in Junction City, a stark contrast to the smoking ruins dominating the Oklahoma skyline. A team of federal agents arrives at the rental agency on the morning of April 20th, carrying photographs of the destroyed vehicle parts. The agency owner and his employees confirm they rented a 20-foot box truck to a man using the name Robert Kling on April 17th. The clerks describe the primary renter as a stoic, muscular man with a military-style crew cut, noting his intense demeanor and precise manner of speaking. Furthermore, the employees recall a second individual standing quietly near the counter, describing him as a stocky man wearing a dark baseball cap with a zigzag pattern. Working alongside a police sketch artist, the witnesses provide detailed facial characteristics to construct composite drawings of the 2 unknown individuals. The authorities label these suspects John Doe Number 1 and John Doe Number 2, classifying them as extremely dangerous fugitives. Within hours, these black and white sketches transmit across every television network and newspaper front page in the United States. Millions of citizens stare at the hard features of the 2 men, transforming the regional investigation into a massive civilian-assisted manhunt. The faces on the screens represent the only concrete targets for a grieving nation demanding swift justice. The introduction of John Doe Number 2 sends the entire federal apparatus down a complex and resource-draining path. Law enforcement agencies dedicate immense manpower to tracking down this phantom accomplice, following thousands of verified tips from frightened citizens across the country. Tactical teams raid rural compounds and interrogate known associates of anti-government groups, operating under the rigid assumption that a larger domestic terror cell remains active. This intense focus on a secondary suspect creates a massive investigative bottleneck, diverting critical attention away from the solitary nature of the actual plot. The relentless search for the man in the zigzag hat yields absolutely no actionable intelligence, frustrating detectives who cannot link the description to any known conspirators. The systemic failure stems from a simple catastrophic error in human memory at the rental agency counter. The clerk unknowingly merged the memory of the truck renter with an entirely innocent customer named Todd Bunting, who visited the shop the following day wearing a Carolina Panthers baseball cap. The rigid adherence to the initial witness statement causes the federal task force to chase a ghost for weeks, highlighting the fragile nature of eyewitness testimony during high-stress investigations. The truth of the suspect's identity remains obscured by this false lead, leaving the actual mastermind hidden behind a fake name. While task forces chase the phantom accomplice, specialized agents concentrate their efforts on the physical paper trail left by the alias Robert Kling. The rental agreement lists a fraudulent South Dakota address, forcing investigators to canvass every temporary lodging facility along the Kansas highway corridors. Agents fan out across the region, walking from lobby to lobby and showing the composite sketch of John Doe No. 1 to motel clerks. This meticulous door-to-door detective work eventually leads authorities to the Dreamland Motel, a modest brick establishment located just outside the city limits. The motel manager recognizes the hard features in the drawing, matching the sketch to a guest who rented room 25 earlier that week. A review of the motel registration cards reveals a critical systemic breakthrough for the federal investigators. Instead of using the Kling alias, the guest signed the registry card using his true legal identity and provided a real home address located in Decker, Michigan. The name printed on the card is Timothy McVeigh, instantly elevating a previously unknown transient to the most wanted man in the nation. Federal agents cross-reference the name with military records, matching the physical description and uncovering his extensive background in the United States Army. The invisible architect of the tragedy finally has a name, shifting the focus of the manhunt from an anonymous sketch to a highly trained individual. As the Federal Bureau of Investigation mobilizes tactical strike teams to hunt down Timothy McVeigh, the suspect is already sitting silently in a concrete cell at the Noble County Jail. The physical distance between the frantic federal command center and the rural detention facility is less than 90 miles, yet a massive communication void separates the two jurisdictions. Following his arrest by Trooper Charlie Hanger on the morning of April 19th, McVeigh undergoes standard booking procedures for carrying a concealed weapon and operating an unregistered vehicle. The local sheriff deputies confiscate his loaded Glock 21 pistol, strip him of his windbreaker, and issue him standard county jail clothing, entirely unaware of his connection to the devastation in Oklahoma City. The county jail operates on an isolated local database, meaning the state officers cannot see the federal terror alerts, and the federal agents cannot see the local arrest logs. McVeigh paces the small dimensions of his cell, displaying zero emotion and offering no information to the local guards monitoring the corridors. He impatiently awaits a standard bond hearing, expecting to pay a small fine and disappear back into the vast American Midwest before the federal agencies connect the dots. In a stunning twist of bureaucratic fate, his scheduled hearing on April 20th is abruptly delayed because the local magistrate, Judge Danny Allen, is preoccupied with a lengthy domestic divorce case. This seemingly trivial judicial backlog prevents the suspect from posting bail, forcing the deadliest domestic terrorist in national history to spend another night behind bars. The fragmented nature of the American justice system simultaneously protects the suspect's identity and prevents his ultimate escape. The morning of April 21st arrives with a heavy sense of urgency permeating the federal command center. Detectives run the newly discovered name through the National Crime Information Center to flag any recent encounters with local law enforcement across the country. The digital query processes the name and instantly returns a positive match, generating an alert that sends a shockwave through the investigative team. The computer screen displays a fresh booking record from Noble County, listing Timothy McVeigh as a current inmate held on standard traffic and weapons charges. The federal agents stare at the glowing monitor, realizing the man responsible for the catastrophic structural collapse has been safely locked inside a cage since 90 minutes after the blast. The sheer absurdity of the situation dawns on the task force, highlighting how a routine highway patrol stop accomplished what thousands of federal agents were preparing to do. Panic sets in as the agents note the time of the impending rescheduled bond hearing, realizing the suspect is minutes away from walking out the front doors of the rural courthouse. The lead investigator grabs a telephone, frantically dialing the main dispatch number for the Noble County Sheriff Office. The entire trajectory of the manhunt hinges on a single phone call connecting through the rural Oklahoma telephone lines. The collision between local traffic enforcement and international terrorism investigations is about to reach its absolute breaking point. The Noble County Courthouse sits quietly in the rural town of Perry, located roughly 60 miles north of the devastated impact zone in the capital city. Inside the austere concrete facility, the morning shift deputies prepare a short list of minor offenders for their scheduled appearances before the local magistrate. Down a short, fluorescent-lit corridor in the holding area, Timothy McVeigh stands perfectly still inside a small, windowless cell. He wears a standard county-issued bright orange jumpsuit, maintaining a rigid military posture while he waits for his chance to post bail. The stark white walls of the holding cell offer no distraction from his internal calculations and his anticipated release. The suspect fully expects to pay a minor fine for his unregistered vehicle and step out into the crisp spring air within a matter of minutes. At the exact same moment, the telephone on the main dispatch desk rings sharply, shattering the mundane atmosphere of the rural station. A local dispatcher answers the heavy plastic receiver and hears the breathless voice of a Federal Bureau of Investigation task force leader. The federal commander issues an immediate overriding directive to place a maximum security hold on the transient traffic violator residing in cell number 10. The dispatcher frantically waves down the shift supervisor, conveying the terrifying reality that they currently house the most wanted man on the planet. The local deputies process the massive weight of the sudden federal directive and immediately abandon their routine morning paperwork. They draw their service weapons and march aggressively down the narrow concrete corridor toward the isolation cells. The heavy footsteps of the guards echo loudly off the painted cinder block walls as they cross the 50-foot distance to the maximum security wing. A senior deputy peers through the thick glass viewing port, observing the suspect standing completely silent in the center of the cramped room. The officers slide the heavy steel deadbolt back, pull the massive metal door open, and inform the stoic veteran that his bond hearing is permanently canceled. The suspect displays absolutely zero emotion upon hearing the news, projecting a chilling aura of calculated indifference to the sudden shift in his circumstances. He simply nods his head, turns his back to the officers, and places his hands behind his back to accept the heavy iron restraints. The loud metallic click of the handcuffs signals the definitive end of his brief illusion of freedom. The local law enforcement officials secure the perimeter of the cell block, locking down the entire courthouse to prevent any possibility of an external assault. A routine highway traffic stop successfully traps the elusive fugitive inside a Mundain County cage, neutralizing the primary threat before the federal cavalry even arrives. Less than an hour after the frantic telephone call, convoys of dark federal vehicles descend upon the quiet streets of Perry. Heavily armed tactical agents jump from the running utility vehicles, establishing a heavily fortified perimeter around the exterior of the county courthouse. The lead federal investigators push through the glass doors of the sheriff's office and march directly into the holding area to take official custody. They stand face to face with the prime suspect, matching his sharp jawline and military haircut to the composite sketch of John Doe number 1. Federal authorities formally charge the man with the malicious destruction of federal property, officially linking the transient veteran to the catastrophic structural collapse in the capital city. The agents grip the suspect tightly by his arms and escort him out of the rural jail into the blinding flashes of hundreds of gathered news cameras. The entire nation watches the live television broadcast as the architect of the tragedy marches toward a reinforced federal transport helicopter in absolute silence. The colossal manhunt ends without a single fired shot, completely dismantling the false assumption that a vast international syndicate orchestrated the devastating strike. The illusion of a sophisticated terror network vanishes completely, replaced by the terrifying reality of a lone domestic extremist hiding in plain sight. The sheer magnitude of the public outrage forces the federal court system to relocate the impending trial far outside the borders of Oklahoma. In the spring of 1997, the judicial proceedings officially commence inside a heavily guarded federal courthouse located in Denver, Colorado. The United States government indicts Timothy McVeigh on 11 federal counts, including the use of a weapon of mass destruction and the fatal targeting of federal law enforcement officers. Federal prosecutors present a flawless, overwhelming mountain of physical evidence to the selected jury over the course of several tense weeks. The legal team introduces the recovered vehicle axle, the motel registry cards, and the specific purchase receipts for thousands of pounds of racing fuel and fertilizer. The prosecution meticulously connects every single piece of forensic data, proving beyond any reasonable doubt that the defendant acted with deliberate, calculated malice. The legal loopholes sought by the defense attorneys collapse under the sheer weight of the recovered explosive residui found embedded in the clothing of the defendant. Dozens of survivors take the witness stand to recount the terrifying sensory details of the blast, filling the silent courtroom with the heavy emotional weight of the tragedy. The jury listens in total silence as ordinary citizens describe the suffocating darkness and the crushing weight of the collapsed ceiling. The rigid factual timeline systematically dismantles every alternative theory, leaving the unrepentant extremist with no remaining avenues for escape. On June 2, 1997, the federal jury returns to the courtroom after days of intense deliberation to deliver their final verdict. The jury foreperson reads the decision aloud, declaring the unrepentant defendant guilty on all 11 federal charges presented by the government. Following the conviction, the same jury sentences the primary architect of the disaster to face the ultimate penalty of lethal injection. The justice system then turns its rigorous focus toward the secondary conferry-birder, Terry Nichols, who assisted in gathering the explosive materials and mixing the chemical components. A separate jury evaluates the extensive paper trail connecting the accomplice to the purchase of the agricultural fertilizer used in the primary payload. The court convicts the accomplice of federal conspiracy charges and involuntary manslaughter, ensuring he will never again step outside the walls of a maximum security prison. The judge formally sentences the co-conspirator to serve 161 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, permanently removing him from civilized society. The sweeping legal victories provide a stark measure of order and accountability for a nation deeply scarred by the unprecedented domestic strike. The rigorous application of federal law proves that no amount of anti-government extremism can outrun the meticulous, unified reach of the American judicial system. The final chapter of the lengthy legal process concludes at the Federal Correctional Complex located in Terre Haute, Indiana, during the early hours of June 11, 2001. The condemned inmate walks into the stark execution chamber, offering no final words of remorse for the families whose futures he permanently stole. The authorities administer the lethal injection protocol, and the perpetrator meets his definitive end exactly 6 years after his initial arrest on the rural highway shoulder. Back in the capital city, the devastated community transforms the massive footprint of the ruined federal building into a profound outdoor memorial. 168 empty bronze and glass chairs now sit on the precise grassy grounds where the concrete pillars once stood, each representing a life tragically cut short. 19 smaller chairs specifically honor the young children from the second-floor daycare, ensuring their innocent memory endures in the face of senseless hostility. The shallow reflecting pool in the center of the plaza offers a quiet space for contemplation, standing as a permanent testament to the resilience of the local citizens. The tragedy fundamentally alters the physical security protocols of every government facility in the nation, forcing architectural changes to prevent heavy vehicles from approaching vulnerable structures. The ultimate legacy of the disaster lies not in the destructive actions of a radical extremist, but in the unbreakable solidarity of the ordinary Americans who rebuilt their city from the ashes.